Live now. ठीक है, चलो ठीक है. Acha, should I start now letting in people?
I think there will be lesson.
There are 15 people in the waiting room. It's what time is it? It's exact 11 right now. Do you guys need time?
We're good, I think.
Okay.
Shall we start?
हाँ, मतलब first 5 minutes, Vishal, the way we said, we are just going to play the video on roll. एक बार let people come and settle down.
Yeah.
And एक बार probably might make sense if you can क्या कहते हैं house rules explain कर दो. Just spend 1 minute there. ठीक है?
अभी करना है कि बाद after video?
अभी तो खाली फर्स्ट स्लाइड आएगी when people would get admitted. उसके बाद हाउस रूल्स की स्लाइड आएगी. एक बार बोल दो क्योंकि there are already 17-18 people who would join us. And then उसके बाद we'll keep on playing video. And then उसके बाद 5 minutes के बाद again एक बार बोल देना हाउस रूल्स.
Okay, sounds good. ठीक है.
ठीक है, चलो. All the best, guys.
Good luck.
Thanks, Trisha.
Best luck, guys.
Thanks, Rashi.
अब लेंगे सबको अंदर.
Welcome, everyone. Om Haram, kids, and welcome to our inaugural and the first session of JVB Talks. I'm really excited about this, and I hope all of you are on this Saturday morning. Before we go into the session, I just want to sort of explain a few house rules because this is the first of its format. It would be useful for everyone to sort of understand what we are trying to do here. So we have with us our first speaker. Let me keep it a bit secret who she is, but you know that. So at least I won't tell right now. Just a few more minutes. So there are very simple rules. We'll start in a few minutes from now, and we'll have we've got 3 parts of the session. So after our speaker has finished her talk for every part, we will open the forum to all of the participants, and I'm pointing more towards you children, to start to relate with what she has said, and then also narrate your own experiences on how you find it for yourself. So we will give like 5 minutes for every part for having that conversation with Krita. Oh, I gave the name, sorry. And then we'll move to the next part, and we'll follow a similar pattern. So we'll have first 6-7 minutes for our speaker to give a talk, and then open up to the forum for 5-6 minutes to have a very interactive conversation. So feel free to talk about how you find and where can you relate those experiences in your own life, because I would come to you and ask about it. So be attentive and enjoy the session. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, thanks, Riksha. So we'll start the session now. So let me first welcome everyone again, and very good Om Haram to all of you participating. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for this first and inaugural session of JVB Talks. She's someone whom all of you fondly recall as your Gyanshala teacher, but there's something more about her. Words do not describe a lot of she has done, especially at this young age, but I'll still try and see if I can do justice to some of her work that she has already been doing. So she's a student of she was a student of our Gyanshala at some point before she became one of our Gyanshala teachers, actually. So one of us teachers. But more than that, she attends one of the most prominent schools in the country, Henrietta Barnett Grammar School, and is now completing her A-levels. She is studious, yes, she's got glasses, achieving all grade 9s at GCSE, wow, and on a similar path for A-levels, so we wish her good luck. In her extracurricular life, she not only helps out at JVB Gyanshala, but also helped run a business for young enterprise last year, and volunteers at her school wherever possible. Having been born in India, like most of us, and raised in an Indian family, she is able to speak English, Gujarati, Hindi, whilst also learning French at school. Amazing. Bonjour, Krita. That is a little summary of Krita. Now let's hear what she has to say about her experiences. So over to you, Krita.
Thank you. So, Jai Janendra, everyone, and as Vishalji mentioned, my name is Krita. So, I am 17 years old and I teach at JVB Gyanshala. Now, just a few years ago, I was a student of this Gyanshala, sitting in the same place you were sitting, learning the same things you were learning. And now I'm here, teaching you, presenting PowerPoints, sharing this knowledge. Well, how did all this happen? So I don't want to bore you with the details. So let me just say I was born in India and my family moved here when I was 3. Now, just like you and your families, being moved from India, where people are so intertwined in the Indian community, most of them either practicing Hinduism or Jainism, to the UK, where everything is totally new. We're totally new. There's barely any temples, mandirs, or derases nearby. There is a huge shock. It's a shock to the system, and although you kids might not have felt it, your parents definitely did. So my parents, they were worried sick about me and my brother Divyam, about us growing up following our religion, our Jainism. But they decided to teach us it. I actually have vivid memories of sitting in front of my mom with Divyam, both of us trying to recite the Loga Sutra, both of us getting it so horribly wrong because we couldn't even pronounce normal words, let alone Prakrit words. But my mom still patiently encouraged us. So just like this, my childhood was full of Jain activities. And whilst we couldn't afford much, my parents, they ensured we stayed in touch with our roots, even if it was from the comforts of our very own home. So whilst growing up, there have been things I've learned through both good and bad experiences. These are things that I'm certain 11 and 12-year-old Krita would have loved to hear from someone else. So let me share them with you. Now, just a quick warning, they will be typical, they'll be cliche, but I assure you they have worked so well in my life. Number 1, not everybody has to like you. Only you have to like yourself. So for me, as a student and as a daughter, I would always try my hardest to please everyone, to make everyone like me. This was to the point where I was overly exerting myself, doing 50 things at the same time for so many different people, just so they could like me. But then in the end, I didn't like myself because I didn't know who I was. I was doing so much for so many people that I actually forgot what I liked doing, what I enjoyed doing, what I wanted to do. And so I had to change. I stopped doing things for everyone. Mentally, I prioritized which people's opinions mattered the most to me, including my mum's, my brother's, and my close friends. I urge you to create a list like this. Whose opinions do you value the most? Whose opinions do you want to meet the most? And whilst all our lists will be different, in all of them, the first and foremost opinion that should matter the most to you should be yours. If we can please ourselves, then everyone else will automatically be pleased. And what if they're not? What if they don't like us? What do we do then? Well, if someone doesn't like me, if someone is upset by my personality, as long as they're not someone whose opinion matters to me, as long as I haven't done anything to actively hurt them and make them not like me, then they're not liking me. It's okay by me. Not everybody has to like you. Now, number 2, your health, well, it comes before grades. There's that old saying called health before wealth. But in our society, we often prioritize grades and wealth and achievement over everything and everything. Before, when I was younger, even if I was having a very, very tiring day, I wouldn't give myself a break. I would force myself to keep working, even though I was physically and mentally tired and going to burn out. Now, that is not how it should work in your life. You need to prioritize your health. You need to take breaks. Think of it as an investment into your future. For example, now, if I'm having a bad day, yes, I will complete the important work due for the next day. But then that's it. I will then rest by sleeping or watching something or reading or talking to someone. Now, for you, you might have different relaxation techniques. You might sing, you might rake, you might do some sports, you could draw, you can do anything. The main thing is that you've identified something that helps you relax, something that puts you at ease, something that makes you feel better about yourself. And maybe according to society, that day where you rested, it's seen as a wasted day. But you know what? If I hadn't rested during the days I was tired, my entire week, my entire month would have been ruined because my body and my mind were so exhausted. And so, health before grades, all the time, because in the end, it will lead to better grades and achievements in the long term. Now, number 3, open up to someone you trust. Doesn't have to be your parents, it can be a friend, it can be a teacher, it can be a parent, it can be any adult you trust. Because something I found when I grew up in high school was that I refused to talk to anyone. I would keep all my worries, all my stress, all my anxieties within me because I didn't want to worry anyone else, especially when all those around me were already stressed from their own lives. But something you have to realize is the same way you'd like your friend or your little sibling to open up to you. Well, that same way, people would like you to open up to them. I found my close friends in year 13, and now I open up to them about everything, no matter how small. Also, I open up to my mum. And yes, not in the same way I talk about different things to different people, but in both scenarios, it helps get some weight off my shoulders. It helps make me feel lighter and better about myself. You, when you were younger, probably experienced this on a smaller scale. For example, when you were younger and you accidentally hurt yourself, you tripped over and you grazed a knee, well, you'd cry, wouldn't you? And you'd complain to your mama about how much it hurt and how it pained. And even though your mom didn't do anything to help you biologically or physically, and the wound was still there, it felt like it hurt a lot less. Well, that same thing applies here. If you talk to someone about whatever is happening in your life, no matter how big, no matter how small, even if they can't solve it, your worry and your anxiety of that problem will decrease greatly. And you know what? Sharing your feelings means the other person will trust you in a lot more ways, and they might share their feelings with you so that you could help them in whatever way possible. It builds a circle and a cycle of love and trust. And so these are the top 3 tips I have for you right now. They are things I've learned about the importance of my health, the importance of opening up to other people, and the importance of understanding myself in my life. On to Vishal.
Thanks, Prita. So that's really a very good summary of some of the important things that you have mentioned. Now let's open the forum to the children that we have got here. And I would sort of turn the table a bit and ask you a few questions and invite you to share your experiences with Krita Didi. And maybe we can have a conversation about maybe she can advise or she can say that's best. So here are some of the questions. When have you, this is for the children, by the way, so hear closely and keenly now. When have you tried of understanding yourself? Maybe you're confused about some of the things about yourself and maybe try and relate with others more, or probably yourself as an identity. So that's the first question. It would be useful to have someone raise their hands or put their answers in the chat, or if you want to talk about it, raise it and we'll put you in the spotlight. Any thoughts?
So kids, when have you tried to better understand yourself or something about yourself? Anyone? Okay, so I think that's a bit of a tricky question. I think we'll move on to the next open-ended question.
Yes, so when have you tried to put your health first above everything else? So remember what Krita Didi said about health being more important? Have there been any instances where you felt like, I can't do that, I'm sort of pushing myself?
Vishal, we have one question before we move to the second question. Chaitya is asking, what are your relaxation methods, Krita?
So personally, for me, as I did mention in the speech, for me to relax, sometimes it just includes sleeping, because usually the thing that stresses me the most out is being tired and not having got enough sleep. But then also other times, I think just listening to music, being able to sit there not doing anything. Sometimes I'm just staring at a wall whilst listening to music. That helps me relax. Other times it can just be having a good time with friends, messing around, making jokes and laughing. In that moment, you won't realize that you're relaxing yourself, but then afterwards you'll think, oh, that was a good time. That did help me relax. So that's how I relax myself. Good question, Jaithya. And now, Vishalji, I think we should say all three in a block.
Yeah, let's do that. So maybe we can sort of intertwine a lot of these questions together. So the third question that I have for all of you here is, when have you trusted someone with something personal about yourself? So maybe you have shared something like Rita Devi said, your anxieties, your feelings, something that you felt strongly about.
I think I saw a hand from Arna.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I share stuff with my mama and papa, like stuff that happened at school. Like if I go into if somebody like hurts my feelings or something, because I feel like I can trust them with personal things.
That's good. Yes. So even I talk to my mom about things. Sometimes it's not even just about my feelings. It could be just about something that happened in school that wasn't even related to me. But if I just tell it to my mom, I feel better. But then she also feels better because it's like I'm giving her an insight into my life, especially when I'm not at home a lot of the time. Sachi?
So one time, my mom asked me, do you want to say anything? So I said that I had loads on my mind, so I just told her anything, and I felt much better after.
So that's called blurting it out. So that's a technique a lot of people use. When you feel stressed and you've got a lot of emotions, you can either write it down or say it to someone, or sometimes you can even just say it into like an empty room if you want. And it's called getting all your feelings and your emotions out and not actually thinking about what you're saying, just saying all of it. So that helps a lot as well. I think JP's got his hand up.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is normal, but I kind of trust my friends more than my parents. So, like, I'm more likely if I want to tell someone, which is like kind of not unusual, but like I'm more likely to tell my friends than my parents.
So yeah, that makes sense, Jade. Yeah, especially because your friends are in the same situation as you. So often it feels like you can trust them more. The main thing is you have someone you can trust, and that person, they should be able to give good solutions, not something stupid, but something good that will help you. So as long as you figured out who's got your best interests at heart and who you can trust and you can open up to them, I think that's the main thing. Does anyone else have any experiences? These are actually really nice experiences. Anyone else before we move on to the second section?
Arna has a question here.
So we have one more question. How did you manage to get grade 9 in all the subjects?
So I think I'll come back to the grade 9 questions at the end. That's more of a revision thing. But I saw that Arna asked the question about how does religion help you in de-stressing yourself?
Yes.
Well, good question, Arna. We're going to actually discuss it in the later parts of this session, so stay tuned for it.
Amazing. Great. I think we should move to the next part now.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll attract more questions there. So let's move to the next part. Greta, over to you.
Yeah. So tip number 4, mental health, well, it exists. And in our society, well, especially in our Indian, in our Desi society, for everyone, there's only physical health and educational health, and that's it. We draw the line there. We forget about mental health. Well, mental health, it's your state of well-being mentally. And as much as everyone says it, you need to take care of your mental health. We need to start having open conversations about mental health in this community because we need to remove the stigma that surrounds mental health. Believe it or not, we all have a mental health. It's just that some people, they have problems with their mental health and other people, they don't. Same way some people have problems with their back and other people don't. Everyone still has a back. So everyone encounters these problems at different times in their life and at different extremities. If these problems, if they go unresolved, they can become worse, and they can then affect all your other types of health, such as your physical health and your health of education. So I want to end this stigma where nobody talks about their mental health because they're afraid of being judged. And so I'm going to speak about my mental health for a bit. So I have a mental health condition, and that is called generalized anxiety disorder, GAD for short. What does that mean? Well, I developed it in year 9, year 10, from not taking enough care of myself or my mental health because I was trying to get good grades all the time. It meant I was having panic attacks and negative thoughts consistently, and I still do from time to time. But I didn't tell anybody about this. I suffered in silence because I knew the stigma. I knew that if I told anyone in my family, it would be regarded as a disease and not as parts of my personality that I could deal with, given the good coping mechanism. But I don't want any of you to suffer in silence the way I did. I want you to talk about your mental health. So I challenge each and every one of you at home or at school, with whoever you feel comfortable with and trust, talk about your mental health. Talk about times you felt stressed and things that helped you deal with this stress. It will be difficult at first, especially if you've not had these kind of conversations before, but it is vital for the long term and the short term. And for the parents that are listening right now, open up to your children about your mental health. For example, describe a time where you felt stressed, where you felt anxious, and this will help your children open up to you. And when your children do open up to them, please listen to them. Help them in whatever way you can. Do not pass judgment. Personally, I was petrified about opening up to my mom for the first time. I was scared that she was going to take it in the wrong way and judge me. And when I did open up to her, yes, initially it did not go as well as I thought it would. But over time, she's actually learnt ways to help me without making it a big deal. And that support, well, it helps you. It means a lot. So try and be that kind of parent who can have an open conversation with their child and who can listen and support their child without judging them or making it a big deal. Now, tip number 4. So I've talked about people opening up to you, you opening up to other people, but how do you do that properly? So when other people open up to you, be a good listener. And what does that entail? Well, clues in the term. Just listen. When someone talks to you about their problems, you don't have to provide solutions because usually that person just wants to get their thoughts out in the open. I've made the mistake before where whenever people would open up to me, yes, I would listen to them, but then I'd try and offer them solutions before they even stop talking. I'd try and think of ways to help them without even being in that situation myself. And now I've realized that most people, they just want to be heard. They want to talk to you. They want empathy. They don't want sympathy, i.e., they just want you to understand what's going on. They just want you to say, okay, I know you're dealing with that, and to comfort them. They don't want pity. They don't want you to be sorry for them. They just want you to be there. You don't need to solve their problems unless they specifically ask. And so please try and be a good listener. Be there for your close ones. Be there like you'd like them to be there for you. And you will see so many of your relationships strengthen even more. And now the 5th point. Well, failure, it is education. You learn so much more from failure than you do from success. For me, I have learned so much more about myself and about situations when I failed at them than when I've succeeded at them. Failure, it's not fun. It can make you feel down. It can make you feel horrible. But you are in control of how you deal with this failure. Let me give you 2 examples of my life, okay, where I failed. So in year 9, with my friend, we had a fight, and that was a failure on my part because I messed up while she messed up as well. But I am stubborn. I refused to speak to her, and I refused to mend things with her. And because of that, I ended up losing an amazing friend. And now let's think about me in year 10. I had another friendship dilemma. I messed up with 2 of my other friends. That wasn't my mistake and my failure. But then, unlike before, I actually used the opportunity to think about why I messed up. why I did what I did. And then I spoke to my two friends and we had an open conversation. We had an honest conversation. And the success of that was that we're still friends and we still have honest conversations. And so for me, failure, it's education. And you just have to use it knowledgeably, because in the long run, it can lead to success. So these were my tips about what I've learned about the importance of my mental health, the importance of actual failure, and the importance of listening to other people in your life. On to the video.
Shiksha, can we start? There's another one as well. I think you have to continue. There's a failure one as well, Shiksha.
Oops, sorry. I think I just faced some technical challenge here. The video would be up in a minute. In the meantime, can you, Vishal, keep asking questions? We have a couple of them in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a lot happening here. So mental health is perhaps the most underestimated problem that exists. So well done, Krita, on taking it up. Really kudos to you on that. So some of the questions that I want to post back to children here is, think about from your standpoint, or probably more to parents when we talk about in terms of mental health and the relationship between whether parents themselves are sort of transparent to accepting those things. And if they can, then they might be much more better confident or supported to support their children. So when have you prioritized your mental health? Have you ignored it too long? Have you listened to somebody else properly in the way that Krita described? And then how have you dealt with failure in a positive way? So these are questions for you to look at and see, come back with some of your own life experiences and share with all of us here, or probably ask Krita Didi. But for the moment, I've got a lot of questions coming in on the chat channel, so I'll sort of go through them now.
Or maybe we can now, my PC is working, I can play the video very quickly. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No problem. Let's do that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. Let's look at the questions now. So there's a question from Vikas. Is failure be good?
Okay, so is failure good? So as I mentioned, failure is great, even though it doesn't feel like it at the beginning, and even though it feels very bad at the beginning, in the long run, you'll realize that this failure is what actually helped you to get even better after a while. So if I'm talking about it in the educational aspect, because I know a lot of you are doing exams right now, and I'll answer another question alongside that. In my maths mock, I didn't get the grade I wanted to get. Okay, I worked very hard for it and I didn't get what I wanted. And so at first I felt so bad about myself. I thought, wow, all my hard work's not paying off. I'm going to fail at my GCSEs. I'm not going to do great, and all these bad thoughts. But then I realized that I had the papers right in front of me. I knew what my mistakes were and I could take them. I could morph them into something that I learned from. And then in my next exam, I could do even better. And I was lucky enough to have that as not be something official. It was something that was just there, and I still had to sit the official exams. And so instead of taking it in the negative way, as I started to then take it in a positive way. I started to think, okay, so I need to work a lot more on my math skills than I do on my other exam skills. So I revised so hard after that, and it paid off in the actual exams. And so failure, it's good, and it leads to success at the end. So to answer that question, failure is good. There's a lot of questions coming in, so.
Yes, we have one more question, which is from Vriddhi and Jia. So it says that Have you ever felt bad about yourself?
Yes, so as I mentioned, when I didn't get a good grade, I felt very bad about myself. Even recently, I didn't get the grade I expected in my French essay exam. And so I did feel bad about myself. I felt very bad about myself because I thought I worked so much harder than that. My potential is so much higher than this. And I know all of you feel this at some point in your lives, when either it's about a grade or it's a sports match or a tournament or anything. But then you have to realize that all this failure is showing you is that things you can work on and you can improve on. And so yes, feel bad about yourself, but also see it as something that's it's a free gift to you about the things you need to improve on. Other people, they go around asking for feedback. Now this is just feedback given to you right there, and you can work on it. The good people, they use this failure to power themselves on and improve on this mistake. But also you need to realize that your grade and your worth, they are not the same thing. Okay, even if you don't have good grades, even if you failed at an exam or you didn't get what you wanted, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean your worth is down. Regardless of your grades, as long as you're a good person, as long as your personality is nice. I know people don't say this. As long as you're a good person, your grades don't matter in the long run of life. In life, you need to be good regardless of what your grades are. So I think to answer that question.
Yep. Very nice, nicely put, Krita. We have one more
Yes.
related question that Ira has asked. Is telling someone about your failure, is it good or bad?
So, well, I guess that depends on your relationship with that person. Okay, some people who aren't that nice, they might take that failure and they might use it to say mean things about you or negative things about you. And that might stop you from using that failure in a positive way. So if you've got a mean friend you know who's going to do that, maybe don't tell them about your failure. But if you've got someone nice, so for example, I told my mum about my failure and how my exam didn't go as well as I wanted it to. And she helped me turn it into something positive. She said, okay, but you've got other exams coming up. You can improve in that way. And you've worked so hard. This failure wasn't because you didn't work hard. It was just because circumstances weren't in your way. And so I guess it depends on who you're talking to about your different types of failure. Assess the situation.
Thank you so much, Krita. We have so many questions for you. I think Nishi has a question for you. Did you struggle with meeting deadlines at the start of GCSE? And did it get easier even though we literally have no free time or hours of homework?
So, well, I didn't struggle just at the beginning of GCSE. I struggled all the way through GCSE, okay? Because these deadlines, they're tough. They're made to stretch you. And so I did struggle. Even A-levels, there's so many deadlines to meet and you do struggle with them. But I think it's just a matter of time management, okay? If you write down what you have to do, what tasks are the most important, then it can help you. One thing I had that I still do and I need to improve on is the fact that I try and make every single task I do perfect as it can be, even if it's tiny and it's small. So one thing I'm trying to improve on is those small tasks, those small pieces of homework that don't matter, do them a little bit less and then focus on the deadlines that you have to meet. You don't have to be perfect in every single thing you're doing, because in the long run, if you can meet those deadlines, if you can use those deadlines that you're meeting to get those good grades, then the small things, they don't matter. And so I did have times where I couldn't meet the deadlines and I struggled with it, but I managed to prioritize. And once I start prioritizing, it means I can meet those deadlines at ease and at comfortable measure with myself.
Very nice. Again, Krita, prioritization does help a lot. We have one interesting question from Rachit. How to find self-mistakes and work on them?
So how do I find, okay, so in terms of education, I just find them by looking at other people's examples or online and then checking it with mine. But then if I'm thinking about my life, so in terms of like conversations you're having or things you're doing and any mistakes you're having there, right? I often try and reflect on conversations I've had, things I've done. You need to be careful. You can't reflect too much and start overthinking it. But I reflect to an amount that's like, okay, so there was a conversation like this. I did that. Should I have said those things like that? And then I try and think of it rationally. If someone said that thing to me, would that hurt me? Then I use it to help me in other situations so that I can improve on myself. So that's often how I try and self-reflect on situations and use it for the better in the long term.
Very nice. Again, Krita, I think we have one question from the adults wherein Rajesh G wants to know, how do we convert negative thoughts into some positive thoughts for ourselves?
So I think one of the main things is, right, think of yourself as a friend. Okay, so think of your best friend and think, okay, so my best friend got this grade that they did, or my best friend messed up in this way. Are you going to be negative to them, or are you going to be like, okay, it's okay, next time you can improve? Are you going to talk to them positively? Now talk to yourself like this. So for example, if you mess up, think, okay, so what if my friend said this wrong thing? Would I be critical of her, or would I tell her it's okay, just improve next time? And that's one way you can turn it into a positive thought. Second way, it's just how you think. Okay, so in terms of biology, right, in our brain we've got these nerves, and so once you start thinking negatively, every single time that thing happens, those nerves will start and you'll think that negative thing all the time. But you don't want to do it like that. So you have to change how it happens. And you kids are young, so this is a good time to change it. So that whenever you get a bad grade, instead of that nerve going straight into, oh my God, you're a failure, oh my God, you've done so bad, it can go into, wow, you've got improvement to do. You need to work harder at this. You can improve at this. And so this is a way you can permanently improve it to becoming good thoughts instead of bad thoughts. It's something I try, and now I feel that it does help me. So I'm hoping it might help you guys too.
And that's a very useful tip, not only for kids, but also for adults. So thank you so much, Krita. We have one very technical question here. How do you get, what are the useful resources for GCSE? Probably we can take that thing offline.
Yeah.
And then we have one good question from Heenal, where she says that when you revise, did you do relaxing things as well at the same time?
So when I revised, I couldn't really relax because I needed the information to go into my mind. But I did make it so that when I was revising, I wasn't doing it under stress, because if I did it under stress, that thing wouldn't go in my head. I would just be reading it and I wouldn't be actually looking at it. So I tried doing it in a place where I felt comfortable, where I felt calm. I put some calm music on in the background, things like that to help me relax and deal with it. But then the more important thing was before and after I start my studies, I need to be relaxed, or try and be relaxed at the beginning and at the end. And now another thing that I've started doing recently, after Samniji's told me, is start doing 3 omkars before I start working. Before I thought it wouldn't help me at all. That's not for me. But now I've realized that it does calm me down so much and helps me focus, because you're focusing on your voice, and that starts your focusing, and you can then focus on whatever you're working on and doing. So I think relaxation, it's important before and after your study breaks, before and after your study sessions, much more than it is during your study sessions.
Yep, I think the 3 Omkars thing is definitely helping us as well. We have another very interesting question from Ira. Should you use other failure as a learning thing for yourself?
So I think she meant like other people's failure. So I guess in some extent it's good to do that, because you can learn from other people's experiences, but you have to make sure that you don't think of it as a negative thing about them. So for example, if a friend fails at a sport or something, and you're trying to use it to help you succeed, you can't think of that friend as being a bad person, because that's bad about you. Whilst you can use their failure to help you and their experiences to help you, you shouldn't be viewing them in a negative light for failing, because as I mentioned, everyone fails. And if you do use someone else's experience to help you succeed, well, technically you should thank that person for helping you in the long run.
Another great answer, Krita. I think we have so many questions to answer, but before we move on to the next block, I would probably just take one more question here from Bipin Ji Bhai. How do you relate GCSE with studying religion? And I think this is something that we would also cover in the next block.
So yes, we're going to cover it immediately now. So yeah. I think that ties in very nicely with the next part.
Sure, and
that's great.
then,
let's start with the
third block. Yep.
Perfect. So we've talked a lot about studying and mental health and things, but another thing is, don't forget the path of Jainism. So I'm going to be totally honest with you. During my teenage years, especially as I entered year 7, my spiritual practice was at an all-time low. I was focusing on getting the best grades in the class, but not on making my soul the best it could be. Little did I realize the two, they go hand in hand. And whilst I became the high achiever of the year, my soul wasn't getting any improvement at all. And although I knew it was bad, I didn't know how to fix it. And it was only in year 11 that I understood some things. So, as I mentioned, I developed anxiety trying to always achieve the best grades in all the exams. And I would be unbelievably stressed before any test, no matter how small it was. So whilst all this was going on in my life, I still wasn't practicing Jainism as much as I should have been. My mum, well, I wasn't opening up to her back then, and she could still tell how anxious I was getting, especially as exams approached. So she would constantly tell me to recite the Navkar mantra, do a mara of Om Namo Nana Sakrita. It will help. But I didn't listen to her. And so I would do my daily prayers and all the other prayers I had to do, but without believing in them. And until one day, and I still remember this day clearly. So it was my maths exam in March 2019, and I was very, very stressed. So sitting in the exam hall, waiting for the paper to be given to me, I tried what my mum had told me to do. I recited the Navkar mantra one time, and then I kept reciting Om Namo Nanasa, Om Namo Nanasa over and over until they told us we could start the exam. And that exam, it was the first exam I'd done in years, where my mind was clear, my stress was lower than usual, and that exam actually was the best math exam I did in so many years. And that is when I realized my education and my religion, they go hand in hand. My religion and my health go hand in hand. You see, in the Jain community, we always talk about spirituality, attaining moksha, etc., etc. But our religion helps us in our daily lives as well. We don't place enough emphasis on mental health, but especially the fact that Jainism will help you manage your mental health more than you can ever think of. And so from then on, even to this day, I recite the Navkar mantra. I recite the Om Namo Nanasa before any exam I have. And whilst this is a minuscule change, tiny, it's confirmed my belief in Jainism, and it's helped me succeed in my exams. I actually came top of my school in my GCSEs, which is not an easy task. And so this is a habit that I use all the time now, whenever I'm in any type of stressful situation, and it always helps me. So I suggest you guys do the same.
Yeah, so maybe we've sort of covered that. Yeah, maybe we need to sort of go to the shall we ask talking about the stressful situations now, or shall we just move over to time management and the other 3 bits and then cover everything together?
Yeah, I think I'll conclude my speech and then we can cover everything in a bulk. So
Cool.
Now let's all fast forward to the summer of 2020. It's lockdown, and I actually receive a call from one of our Gyanshala teachers asking, would you like to become a volunteer teacher at JVB? At first, I hesitate. I think I have mock exams coming up. I just can't. And then I think I don't want to miss this opportunity. I love teaching and I want to spread this knowledge. And so I say yes. And hand on my heart, it has been one of the best decisions I have taken so far in my life. My spirituality has grown incredibly. My belief in Jainism has grown immensely, both with the knowledge I gain from other teachers and Samnijis, but also just from the activities and the time I'm able to dedicate to JVB service. So I started helping out in JVB in July, and now I'm in year 13. And whilst teaching, volunteering, and studying for my A-levels, it requires balance of time, but I've managed to do it. For example, I do my schoolwork and revision on weekdays and at school, and I focus on creating the lessons for my Saturday sessions on Thursdays and Fridays. If there are any other events scheduled at JVB, I do have to reschedule what I'm doing, and it's difficult and stressful at times, but it motivates me to work efficiently and has shown me the importance of giving back to the community. Nothing pleases me more than seeing that kids have enjoyed what I've taught and what I've presented. Time management is not the only skill I've learned, though. It is difficult presenting in front of a crowd like I'm doing right now, but I've gained this confidence over the months and now even speak to adults without being scared or hesitating. All of this, well, because of JVB. And so because of all this I've learned, I advise each and every one of you to get involved in JVB and volunteering here in some way or another. Even if it's as tiny as volunteering to sing a bhajan every Saturday, the reward you receive, it's priceless, and it helps you in more ways than one. Now, onto my life right now. Currently, I practice Jainism in little pieces every day. I think Jainism and my faith, it's more than about what you do than what you recite or what you know. What this means is that whilst it's great if you recite a stotra or do a mara, what matters the most is, are you a good person? Do you practice ahimsa? Do you take care of animals? Do you help people you see in need? Do you reduce your attachment to material items? In essence, this is what our karma theory is based upon, and this is what I try and follow on a daily basis. I'm not perfect, and nobody is. I still slip up sometimes. I sometimes argue with my brother, my friends, and other things like that. But what's the most important is that I acknowledge that what I'm doing is bad. I reflect on it, and I try to be a better person next time. In terms of stotras, I still learn them, I still recite them, and I recite them whenever I need them or whenever possible. However, one thing I have adopted, and I think a lot of you should do this as well, is instead of doing a whole samayik on the weekends and not enjoying it because it's long, etc., do a few prayers every day. For example, I recite 3 stotras every morning. I bow down to my mum, and then I leave the house for school. It's not much, I know that. But it helps me think about Jainism every day rather than being so long and weary on the weekends. And it helps me practice my spirituality before I do anything else in the entire day. So now my method of using Jainism every day in little pieces, it really helps me. And everyone needs to find their balance like this in some way or another. How will you use your knowledge of Jainism every day so you can continuously use it to improve yourself and help you in stressful situations?
Yeah, that's a good, I think that this is how Jainism has been incredibly useful as long as you know what it is in it. Do you just want to theoretically use it, or do you want to practically use it? And Krita, what you just mentioned is the whole sort of practical science of it, isn't it? And it's brilliant that you've been able to really reap the benefits of it. And the more we train ourselves early in life, the more we'll benefit. So one of the things is, it's continuous improvement is not just about improving a thing. It's so many things that you have to improve to really learn from the lessons, the mistakes, the things that you shouldn't be doing. So the question for the children out here is there anything that you have sort of not stopped doing, you've been starting to do? You know, we have had these sessions in the past where we talked about Mano Yoga, Preksha Dhyan, Kayotsarg, stopping bad things and doing good things and removing those bad habits from our...
I think he's frozen, but just removing bad things from our lives.
Either way,
religion. Vishalji, I think you froze. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Great, that's great. So just conscious of time here, we've got about 9 minutes left. Krita, can we just play back that again, the part 3 again?
Yeah, Vishalji? Sure.
Sorry. Thanks. So let me ask you a question, Krita. what do you think your life would be? And we had this sort of discussion while preparing for this as well. And this applies to people of all kinds of faith as well. So let me sort of generalize this question for you. What do you think your life would be without faith, or without practicing faith, or without identifying what applies to you through that faith?
Well, without my faith of Jainism, I don't think I would be as kind as I am. I would definitely not be as understanding as I am. And my grades, they wouldn't be as good as they are. And my mental health wouldn't be as good as it is without a religion, this religion to believe in. Personally, I believe that a religion, it's a gift to you. It's basically just a guide that they've given you on how to live your lives in the best way possible. We would be fools to ignore this guide and not learn from it. It's a guide that can be applied to anything and everything. It's almost like a little toolkit for life, okay? You can use it wisely. You need to use it thoroughly and mainly use it for you. You too will have life improving experiences, just like I did.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Krita. Let's open the forum for questions. Feel free to ask. I think there are some questions coming in. Shiksha, anything that you want to pick up from the chat list?
Yes, definitely. I think there's so much to learn from you, Krita, not only for the kids, but also for the adults who are almost like in daily chores and everything in the life. So thank you so much on this thing. We have some really interesting questions which are coming in. And one question which I can read out to you is from Sanchi, who says, how do you cope up with studying and spiritualism?
So actually, I use spiritualism to help me study. So as I mentioned, doing the 3 Omkars, but also I know that sometimes you need to have studying take a priority. And so what I do is I use spiritualism in small bits, like I mentioned. It's not a thing that weighs me down, but it's a thing that lifts me up. For example, just doing a few stotras in the morning. For example, I don't even know the whole Bhaktamar, but I'll still sing the first few gathas that I know in the morning or whenever I'm in a difficult situation. And so I think that's how I cope with exam pressure, spirituality, and school.
Very well put, Krita. I think we have one more question from Bhavesh Jain. How does meditation help you in relaxing?
So for me, I think meditation is actually still a thing I have to improve on, because for me, meditation, whenever I try meditating, my thoughts, they start going all around and they start to take over the fact that I'm actually meditating. But instead of meditation, as I mentioned, I just use it as a tool to help me, so to help me focus. So it's just a matter of doing 3 Omkars and helping me get through whatever I need to get through. But another thing I've learned, it's type of meditation, it's more visualization. So whenever you're in a stressful situation, anyone, I want you to imagine a time when you've been in a good situation, when you've been in a happy situation. For example, for me, that time is when I was in a beach in France, and it was such a good time for me. And I go back to that every time I'm in a stressful situation, and I think about how good I felt, how happy I felt, and that helps bring me back into life, but also helps me become a bit positive and a bit happier than I am whenever I'm in a stressful situation. So visualization is a technique I highly recommend because it works so much for me.
And not to mention Preksha meditation, which our Samnijis have been practicing a lot, and they also promote it like something that really brings an eternal peace to mind and body. So I would say this visualization is something like a new technique that we would definitely try. But again, sticking back to the roots and something that we are being preached, the Preksha meditation as a very important tool to, again, calm yourself. We have
even Shamniji has taught us about. So Shamniji, we should also remember the way Shamniji has taught us about narrating or speaking Navkar mantras, focusing on the right kendras of our body. That also helps a lot in terms of de-stressing. So lots of techniques, yes, but visualization, really love it.
Yep. We have very interesting question. I don't know the name, but it says, have you ever find yourself in a situation where you ended up cheating just because you didn't want to fail?
Well, so For me, I actually have a set of morals, if you call it. So promises I've made to myself, that things I will never do in my life. And so cheating is one of them. So even if it gets stressful, I would rather work and get a grade than cheat and get that grade. So for me, I haven't actually cheated in an exam because I feel like if I cheated and did get that grade, I still wouldn't be happy with it. So I get why other people would cheat, but for me, I'd rather just not. And I wouldn't advise any of you to cheat either. That's a bad thing to do, and it doesn't help you.
Yeah, I think we'll all resonate with this thing. Cheating is just complete no-no in any situation. Um, there is one more interesting question from Rachit, probably something that you would have already answered, is like, how can we manage various things? Is prioritization something that we can look, and can we also relate it to religion?
So, well, for prioritization, what I tend to do is, so create a list of everything that you have to complete. Okay, now next to that, right, when is everything due in? Now, for me, my system is stars, but I draw how many stars relates to how important it is. So 1 star is not important, 3 stars is very important, need to work a lot at it. So then I look at whatever the most important and due in the most earliest, and then I go down in priority and what's due in like the most recent. So then I can focus on that. But also, if there's a project that's very important to me and due in 2 weeks or something, that means I've got so much time to actually work on it and make it as good as it can be. So then I can work on it in little pieces over the few weeks to make it a good project. So that's how I prioritize. And I use religion to help me prioritize sometimes. So I guess that's how religion can tie in with prioritization.
Yes, I think prioritization helps in every aspect, whether it be religion, be it your work, everything. We have some technical questions here. Again, like people want to know, how did you get to the grade 9? How much did you study? How many GCSEs did you do? So I think, do you want to like take one moment to maybe summarize in one line, and then you can take them offline?
Yes. So about my GCSEs, okay. So I got grade 9s and that took a lot of hard work. One tip I'd recommend you do is start making your notes as soon as possible. In my school, we started the GCSE course in year 9. So I started to write my notes. Even though I didn't actually know in year 9 that was going to help me in year 11, I still started to write my notes from year 9, just as a type of way of revising for the small tests we had coming up. And then they actually helped in year 11 because I could just gather my notes and then they could use them in the actual exam. But then I also did a lot of practice papers. Okay, so you have to like practice with things, because it comes back to the thing about failing. In trying these practice papers, I got really bad scores at the beginning and it did get me down. But then I would look at the mark scheme, look at what they were looking for, and then I'd use it to improve on my practice. And then I was getting higher scores in the practice papers, as well as using it for time management. But the thing is, I actually had a drop in my grades in year 11, and that was because I wasn't taking care of myself, and that was because in the exams I would be stressed and I wasn't able to perform as well as I should have. And so then this is why I'm saying you have to prioritize your health, because you can't afford to have a drop like that when you have actually got your GCSEs. And so if you take them both hand in hand, if you relax at the same time as working, then it can help you avoid what happened to me and have a smoother ride to your GCSEs. But also remember, it is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So your small exams, they don't matter as much as the big exams do.
Thank you so much, Krita. I think it has been a very interesting talk. We are getting so many questions from like technical point of view. How do you crack GCSE? Then resources, how do you go about it? Probably best would be that we share your details over Gyanshala group, wherein people can reach out to you directly. Can I now ask Vishal to kindly conclude this session? Maybe how do you want to do it?
Thanks, Shiksha. Really, thanks again to Krita. It was a very, very step-by-step approach to how you improve and improve your life. And you said this improvement is not up to a point, it's a marathon. That's really the most important thing. And most of us, adults inclusive, will agree with you on that. We might have learned from our mistakes that we didn't realize, but hearing you at this young, tender age of 17 about things that I can vouch for you and almost anyone amongst us adults can. It's amazing the level of depth of your thinking, and I hope it inspires all the other children who are in Gyanshala, and we can sort of almost spin out this level of success amongst all of us in the community through your thoughts and your words and your support. Thank you so much again on this Saturday morning. Everyone is really incredibly thankful to you, and I can say on their behalf.
Thank you all for joining and listening.
I think it was
Thanks
very
again.
interesting, since considering that it's just the first chapter that we have kind of piloted today. We would be coming back shortly with the details of the second speaker and how do you engage with us more on the JVB Talks platform. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and keep tuned for the next chapter of JVB Talks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jay,
everyone.
everyone.